Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again with pretty unlimited fucking power. The build. Lightning Tendrils. Star Wars meme. The build here is Lightning Tendrils, and currently what you're seeing is it used with Castwell Channel Lightning Warp. Now, Lightning Tendrils is a bit of a meme in the community and not a very popular skill for good reasons. Basically, it's not a very standstill friendly world out there. And the area of it kind of sucks. That said, its damage can get really good at the moment, so all you really have to do is fix the standing still problem or the AoE and clear problem. This build solves the clear problem two ways. Before starting this lightning warp bullshit, what I was doing was Orbis Storms with chain support in a 6-link, so you can just run around manually dropping Orbis Storms and lightning warping. And lightning tendriling, and it does clear pretty well. The problem is just the sort of run speed, movement speed of the character. Still not super good, but Orbis Storms plus Tendrils clears fairly nicely. Once we have a weapon swap with Lightning Tendrils, Castwell Channel Lightning Warp, though, this happens and it becomes a really, really good clear speed sort of build. It is largely thanks to the whole Lightning Warp, but the Tendrils comes in and basically kills things in one shot afterwards. So you're just non-stop channeling your Lightning Tendrils and then Lightning Warping all over the place. And since we are using a triple damage Annihilating Light Staff, you can do an easy weapon swap into our single target Lightning Tendrils on demand whenever we need actual damage. Or if you'd rather just run around for a bit because it's a not very lightning warp friendly situation. With the weapon swap, it means that you can very quickly just become pure single target, and in this build the single target deals tens and tens of millions of damage. I don't actually know exactly how much, you got to properly calculate it, but every fourth pulse of Tendrils hits like 400% harder, and in this build that is 120 million DPS worth of damage. Whereas the regular Tendrils is something like 25 million DPS worth of damage. So if you actually calculated it, it'd be something like 60 million constant DPS, which is pretty damn insane for what the build is, which is nothing too special. It's a couple of Annihilating Light Staves, it is a whole bunch of Golems, so it's an Elementalist scaling Golem effect, and then, yeah, a cluster jewel, couple of megalomaniacs, and that's all there really is to it. So I do think Lightning Tendrils can be done in several different ways. Inquisitors are probably going to be the most flexible way, but with this version we are just pure lightning using a couple of extra ways of scaling penetration, Elementalist with exposure and then even more powerful exposure thanks to the Elementalist, and using conductivity on self-cast, as well as a self-cast Assassin Mark. With all of the Golem effects, if you scale them up as much as I have, and you're using 8 Golems, you can have a lot of life regen, a lot of damage reduction from physical, a lot of cast speed, pure damage, and also crit. The problem with this sort of a style is the Golems can die, and it doesn't happen too often, but there are situations where they die thanks to Elementalists, so they are reborn pretty quickly. So that is kind of nice, but it still will happen in the end game against certain things like Shaper slams, maybe beyond sometimes if it's staying alive for too long. Cirrus Storms I don't think really seem to be much of a problem. There will be some things you definitely wouldn't want to do, like a Simulacrum for example, because that's where Golems die profusely. But for most of the core game, like, they're immune to elemental damage, and they do have a decent bit of regen in our setup, so it's not too bad, and they can be a very viable buff stick still. The other real big issue is it takes up a lot of gem sockets, so you can't really do as many things as you'd like to if you want to do more activities, and currently I've just fit in a Orbis Storm setup, whereas alternatively I would have also wanted to fit in a really big Lightning Warp setup, and then that wouldn't have called for a cast while channeling sort of thing. But as far as a single target is concerned, this is the portion of the video and build where we're doing single target. This is just going to be one video because I've already basically completed the build and done all the end game, and you can see it does get pretty girthy. So I was doing invites with all kinds of extra damage modifiers and stuff just so I could blow the bosses up really quickly, and it shouldn't matter. I did most of the Uber bosses. Once again, I just didn't get around to trying Exarch because he's on the other side of the Atlas tree, but this type of build should be able to do Exarch. Lots of damage means you can just kind of like graveyard zerg him, yeah, really clean kills on things like Cirrus. I believe that was a full deathless Uber Cirrus. Maven got a nice deathless one there. This Chayula here just destroyed me, unfortunately, in the field. I did roll extra damage on this one, but I was also just then getting used to Flame Dash instead of Frostblink, and Frostblink does get you kind of used to an instant dash, whereas Flame Dash means you have to stop for just a split second before you use your dash, and then lets it go off. So I wasn't quite used to that, and it cucked me just a little bit. But the character's not the thickest thing around. It's got a lot of fizz damage reduction. It's got a lot of regen, 1800 life regen at the moment. It just isn't very good against taking elemental damage hits because I haven't done anything about that. Whereas like I said, the strategy that you can utilize for something like Tendrils and builds with a few holes in their defense is just kill things really quickly. That was Uber Cirrus last phase. Got pretty lucky on that one. This is Uber Eater of Worlds. Got slapped pretty nicely there and still survived. So on this fight, Golems do die a bit because there's a lot of physical damage being thrown around thanks to those tentacles. But otherwise, yeah, there's also the issue of the Righteous Fire MTX I'm using is kind of cancer. It's very pretty, but it is super not visual friendly. I missed one of the balls, and then I didn't even realize I was getting attacked by the degen beam there right at the end. So I do have a Deathless Maven with possibly the best Maven loot I've ever had right at the end of the video, but let me go ahead and show you how I built the character up to this point. So here is the character, not so far, but completed. Level 94, pretty limited power to be honest, because the whole meme is unlimited power, Palpatine doing the Tendrils, and I didn't expect it to be anything other than some limit on my power here, because it was Tendrils, and I thought we wouldn't quite have the damage or the AoE or something, but in the end it ended up being a really nice build, and I was pretty happy with the power level. So that's the red MTX that now exists for Tendrils, and that's with Conk Effect, so the AoE is a bit smaller there, but it's still not bad. Whereas that's without Conk Effect, and it's just the Lightning Warp setup. And that's just facilitated by a weapon swap using Annihilating Light in 2 different slots, so 2 6 links. The main Lightning Warp setup here is Tendrils, Lightning Warp. You got a Castor Channel, Awakened version, crit strikes, less duration, life tap. It's pretty damn mana heavy to constantly chug Lightning Warps, so you kind of need life tap for that if you haven't truly solved mana or using Eldritch Battery or something like that. Since I got a lot of regen, it's not an issue. And then the setup over here is Tendrils into Awaken, added lightning damage, Inspiration, crit damage, Infused Channeling, and Conk Effect. We are using the Phantasmal Lightning Tendrils setup here, so you can see that every 4 pulses, Tendrils deals a bunch of damage. The quality gives you less damage to the entire Tendrils, but your every 4th pulse will deal another 250% more. So you can do some alt quality stacking memes with this sort of shit, but be careful that if you don't stack it, if you stack it too high, then it is actually a damage loss, because you just have like 60% less damage or some shit to your entire thing, but then a bunch on just the 4th pulse, and it's more just kind of like for an ignite setup if you do like a really big quality stacking thing. So this is just a level 20 gem. I did end up corrupting 3 or 4 of these and got no level 21s, so a level 21 would give me like another 8 million DPS or some shit like that. Didn't quite go all the way into that min-max, but that's as far as I got. So having the Annihilating Light weapon swap's really convenient for this sort of thing. The relic's pretty negligible. It's just a bit of Lightning Leech and some Cold Res. Because of these staffs, you do have to get a lot of resists throughout the build. This helped just a little bit. In the end, I did cap fairly comfortably, and the Leech can be sorted through like a cluster jewel that I will show you in a second. The rest of the gear, is just trying to fit in a bunch of reservation because I'm running Purity of Elements, Wrath, and Zealotry and trying to buff all three a decent bit. And then also Vitality is a flat mana one. So just a regular chest with some life regen, Fracture, and then used Loathings, Essences until I got damage reduction, and then just did something for prefixes. Wrath effect, curse effect. Once again over here just used loathing essences and then did some eldritch implicits until I hit something good for a suffix. In this case it was life regeneration rate. So you can see that because I'm stacking lots of life regeneration rate and my life golem throughout my build, I've got 1900 life regen, and that means that I can easily sustain righteous fire, which is 40% more spell damage. It's just purely there to give us a pile of spell damage, doesn't do anything else, but it means you have to get a lot of regen or a lot of max fire res. This is just a fractured ring with some cast speed, res, min endurance, a lot of cast res, similar ring, or the same ring I used from previous build, lots of cast res, bit of life, some regen, and some temple gloves, unnerve, exposure on hit. A hunter belt that if you use caster reroll over and over again, it'll be cast speed during flask effect, just hunting down one res, some life, and then some spare suffix for more res. And then the same boots from previous character, still pretty shitty, but I did need some strength and dex for the build to function, so that's what that is. And then what looks like a pretty nutty primordial chain, additional curse, level 21 purity of elements. That saves me a gem socket because don't have to socket purity of elements in anywhere, but this thing is kind of an up and down. Primordial Chain never feels that good because it does make your golems a lot squishier, and 3 additional golems isn't that huge. And a regular amulet with some cast speed, +1 lightning, crit multi is probably fairly comparable, but the difference is that with things like Elementalist, 25 increased effect of buffs granted by our golems per summoned golem means if you have more golems than the normal 5, you get a bit more buff effect, and likewise if you are running primordial bonds, 10% increased damage per summoned golem, so it's an extra 30% damage per primordial bond, and I've got 1, 2, and 3 of those, so it's not too bad, but like I said, a regular amulet will be fairly competitive. This thing was 20C. There was like 3 or 4 of them up for sale with these exact double corrupt implicits for like 10 to 40C. So yeah, pick this one up for 20C. So it looks nutty and insane, but once again, as I've always tried to encourage people to do, look for underutilized, underappreciated niches in certain markets, and then you can do things as well. Like I said though, I'm not even sure if it's very worth using primordial chains, but it had some good corrupts, so I went in on it. Typically it does make things a bit more uncomfortable for golem sustain. Currently my golems have like 11k life, something like that, and you can otherwise have them at like 20 to 30k with the right sort of golem setup. So that's the entire setup there. The passive tree is a lightning caster, somewhat typical, using staves. You've got crit on staves there, a bit of area from staves. We have a really good thread of hope using a medium ring up here, so you've got to pass through a fairly uncomfortable area to then hit really good lightning nodes, golem nodes, a mana node, which I do need to sustain my mana. So thanks to a bit of mana regen from Alira, Arcane Will, a node over here, I can actually sustain mana fairly comfortably throughout the game. As you can see, I will run out, but I don't normally if we expose something recently for that extra regen over there. So we got golem nodes first, we then went expose, and then Heart of Destruction. Picked up a Watcher's Eye for 1 divine that has gain arcane surge with Zealotry. That basically just saves me a link for arcane surge, because otherwise you would just attach it to anything. Since the main use of this type of thing is for an Eldritch Battery build where you can't get Arcane Surge, but then we've also got damage penetrates 15 lightning res while affected by Wrath. Bit of area, some staff nodes, an Anima Stone just for +1 max golem, and aura nodes, and then our really mediocre, does basically nothing cluster here, 8 socket cluster with Primordial Bond, and then I rolled it to have cold res because I needed some cold res to finish off my res cap. I then picked up several Megalomaniacs. This one is Primordial Bond, and that one's Primordial Bond as well. But then I've just looked around for other little things I could fill out that I still want on this build. So 10% aura effect and a little bit of crit. And this one has cheaper zealotry, so that meant that I could fit in Vitality after taking the Vitality mastery over here, and then just some mana to make mana a bit more comfortable. There's lots of Megalomaniacs from the cheaper side of things to the more expensive side of things, but around 1 divine is where you want to be. Picked up another one, this one here, which was going to be better, I think, but I don't even know. I'm pretty sure this one's better than this one over here, but I just like the idea of a bit more aura effect instead. Ultimately, like, culling is 10% damage, and then a bit more mana regen is pretty nice too. Regardless, there's lots of those out there. Primordial Bond stacking is only particularly worth it if you're going to do like really heavy into golems and possibly just Primordial Chain, because then you've got 8 golems. If you don't have 8 golems, Primordial Bond, you know, a little bit more is cool, but otherwise, yeah, it's not the biggest deal. And that is basically the build. Our Orb of Storm setup over here has Power Charge on crit damage, crit strikes, hypothermia, and inspiration. But while I'm map clearing, I'm always using chain. Hypothermia is just in there for single target. Ice Golem, Lightning Golem, Wrath level 21, Stone, Flame Golem, Chaos Golem, Zealotry, Conductivity, Stone Golem, and then up here, Vitality, Assmark, Flame Dash, and Righteous Fire. And I think that's all I need to say about the build. So you can see that my Fizz damage reduction is pretty high while standing still. That's while having basically 0 armor, so we are fairly decent against physical damage because it's not armor based, it's actual proper physical damage reduction. A lot of life regen. Did basically nothing about elemental, that's why it's, you know, not the best situation against that. So no spell suppress, no max res, but doesn't really matter too much if you're just blasting dudes really quickly. Hit level 94.5, I think, and then died a bit and started bossing. 21 hours and full round of Ubers and all that. It was pretty damn fast with the, once I started doing the lightning warp setup. So I only did it for about 5 levels maybe. Up to that point I was just running around manually and doing this playstyle. So Orb of Storms, Orb of Storms, Orb of Storms, Lightning Tendrils, Orb of Storms, Tendrils. You can do that if you want, or you can go the really sort of flicker strikey lightning warp style setup. But yeah, that's the build. Really happy with how it turned out and how Tendrils played. So I hope you guys like that too. I'll leave you with the Maven kill, possibly one of the most impressive Maven kills I've ever had. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time. About the same. I mean, I suppose it could be the same. That was before spawning any balls. Okay, that's clean. That was a good one.
I will have what I want. This will not be an escape.
Mm-hmm.
Scurry, scurry. Stand still.
Okay, still very good. Whoa. And you just noticed the Katava shit right at the end there.
Stand still.
Finisher! Oh my god, only one ball phase? That's insane! That's definitely some unlimited fucking hour. Unless I die right now. Huh? Very good.
Arrogant toy. Death will not be an escape.
I mean, I'll probably still die at the end here, but that's fine. Because the first phase was super duper uber unlimited power clean. This RFM text is so fucking trash for this fight. Like, I can't tell what is going on.
A cascade of pain.
No!
Take this.
No again!
Stand still.
There it is. Unlimited fucking power. And holy crap, did we get some loot this time around. A work cock, a shiny relic key, and supreme ego. Is supreme ego good? I mean, it lets us grab charisma.
The memory of your sting will fade soon.
Is that a good one? I don't know if people use that, but maybe. Please, a pile of money. Oh my god! I would not have thought it was that much a pile of money. I didn't think fucking Impossible Escapes went past like 20 div at most. Holy pile of money. Supreme ego. That looked so small. Alright, are we on a roll?
I agree with
The
Matt.
key as well? Observe things for
GG.
6 months. Cast on crit's nothing, right? Yeah. About a div maybe, uncorrupted. This though. A shiny flask, right? Is what we need. Shiny flask. Range. I don't know, shiny boots. They're good. Does anyone want those? Maybe? I mean, the roll's okay, but it's not huge. What do you look for? Foil. Rainbow default. 71 results, 20C. Yeah, no. Man, never fucking lucky, dude. Can't make any money in this game. Bossing and endgaming, it's fucking bullshit.